Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar. My name's Nick Child, and I'm the Director of Client Experience here at Harris Federal Employee Law Firm. We are really excited to have you here today and to put on this webinar. Today, we're going to talk about all the benefit options available to you as a federal employee if you're unable to continue working. So this is a big topic. We're going to go for a little bit here and cover a lot of different stuff. So if you're a federal employee that you just feel like you can't work anymore, you have a disability or an injury that's preventing you from working, that's what we're going to cover. We're going to look at all of your options from short-term to long-term options. So this is going to be a really great and insightful webinar. I'm joined here by Bo Harris, the president of Harris Federal Law Firm, and Caleb McKinley, case evaluation specialist here at the law firm. And we have these guys that have great information, tons of experience. They talk to people about this stuff on a daily basis and have a lot to cover and a lot of insight on these things. So I think it'll be of a lot of value to you. Another thing I want to mention too before we get started is if you look in the bottom right corner of your screen, you're going to notice a chat box there. That's a place where you can ask questions. We have some team members here that are ready to answer questions as they come in. We'll get to them as quickly as we possibly can, but take advantage of that and ask questions about this benefit or anything that comes up throughout the webinar, and we'll try to get to those as quickly as possible. So we're really excited to present this to you today and hope it helps you out a lot. So without further ado, here is Bo and Caleb to get started. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about federal benefits for disabled federal employees, and we've got a lot of information to go through. We have a special guest here, Caleb McKinley from our office. He's a case evaluation specialist. Caleb, thanks for being here today.
Yes, thanks, Bo. So yeah, like Bo said, I'm a case evaluation specialist here. So what I do is, if you're a federal employee, if you're seeking options on what your benefits are, I'll speak with you 30 minutes as typical for us, and it's free, so you can call us and we can go through your options and I can take a look at your situation. So I'm used to a very specific, practical application of this information, but today I'm excited to go over just a brief overview here so that you can get a better idea of what your total options are if you're a disabled federal employee.
Absolutely, that's great, and we're very happy to have you, Caleb. And we're going to touch on several different things today. But the primary kind of overview is just kind of which federal employee benefits can you utilize when you can't work. So we used the word disability a minute ago. The word disability is a tough word because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But really, we're talking about what can you do when you can't work. We're really just, that doesn't mean that you're totally disabled. That just means that you can't necessarily do your job, right? So there's several different things to get into here. We're going to cover a ton of different stuff here, and like Caleb said, this is a broad overview. This is just kind of touching the highlights, and we're specifically going to dig a little bit deeper into federal workers' compensation and disability retirement. So with that being said, Caleb, this next slide here is one that we're putting up as a visual representation, kind of a timeline, if you will, of the different options that you have as a federal employee, and tell them why we're showing it to them in this view.
Yeah, and personally, I love this visual. I'm a very visual learner myself, so it helps to see all these different benefits laid out this way. So what we wanted to do was break down these benefits so that short term, you would understand that FMLA, leave without pay, sick leave, voluntary leave, these benefits are great for the short term, but they're not meant to last. They're not supposed to be long-term provisions. And so if you can plan a next step after those things, understanding from the onset that they're not supposed to be permanent, I think it's very helpful with your future planning. And yeah, if you look at the short/long-term benefits with wage loss payments, agency disability policies, we're going to get into that as well. So it's depending on the situation, the longevity of the injury, how long you'd be receiving wage loss payments. And once you get to the long-term benefits there, federal disability retirement and Social Security disability schedule awards. Those are all very long-term, future, forward-thinking types of benefits here. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing just to say is that just because you're seeing all these different these different options on one page doesn't mean that you're going to be eligible for all of these things, right?
That's right.
So we're just trying to show you that, hey, there's a wide variety of options out there for people, but they're not necessarily qualified for all of them. But we're going to try to hit the highlights of each benefit so you can kind of get a better understanding of what they are and how they might be applicable to your situation. Okay, so moving into understanding short-term options. Caleb, can you walk us through a little bit of what FMLA is and what that's not, and how it compares to what leave is?
Yeah, of course. Now, FMLA, it's an acronym for the Family Medical Leave Act. So it's a provision where you get 480 hours of unpaid leave. Now, it's very flexible hours, so you can utilize that in a non-continuous basis. So 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or it could be for a continual period of time. So it's very flexible, and every FMLA application is completed and signed off on by a physician, by a doctor. So I call it like killing 4 birds with 1 stone. It's a very, very useful benefit that not only can identify what leave hours, how many hours of leave you need, but it'll also ask your doctors what functions of your job, what tasks or duties you can or cannot perform.
Yeah, and especially the essential functions, right?
Exactly, correct. So if you're also looking to begin the reasonable accommodation process, this could be a good way to start that as well. FMLA, it's useful in a wide variety of contexts for short-term traumatic impairments, traumatic injuries, but also more chronic conditions. You can imagine arthritis, diabetes. If it's a long-term or chronic condition, you can use FMLA to buy you some time.
Yeah, and it's really helpful to a lot of people in specific situations. So talk to us about leave. We have sick, we have annual, we have voluntary leave program, we have leave without pay. There's a lot of different stuff here to unpack. Can you walk us through each one of these things, Caleb, so we can get a better grasp of what the leave policies might look like?
Yeah, of course. So starting with sick leave, of course, this is paid leave. This is accrued every year by a federal employee. So this is addressing your own personal medical needs. This is about the individual here. So many agencies are going to require notice from a doctor. They're going to require a physician's signature or request for sick leave. And personally, I think that's great to establish a paper trail, a medical record. So if your doctor is advising you to take time off, this is, of course, the best avenue to go about. So with annual time, here we're talking about vacation leave. This is at the point now where you've exhausted your sick leave and you're taking your own personal time, your own personal vacation time to either recover from a surgery or give your body, your mental health, your physical health some time to recover. And again, if you're still using vacation time, if you're now at the point where you've exhausted your sick leave and you're taking personal time to take care of your health, then that can all be supportive to a long-term disability retirement case as well. But again, here for the short-term options, annual leave is a flexible option you have. It's paid time, of course, and so that way you're not out of an income if you do require that.
Yeah, that's great. And it's unfortunate to think about people having to use their own vacation time, but that's just the reality of a lot of people that we talk to who are going through these kind of things.
That's right.
Thank you. Yeah. So voluntary leave, the transfer program and bank program, what's that, Caleb?
A lot of agencies will offer programs like this where a coworker can donate leave to an individual who's dealing with an injury or occupational impairment. They're dealing with any medical condition that prevents them from doing their job, and if they've exhausted their paid leave. So if you're looking to get donated leave, advanced medical leave, you can contact your HR department. Human Resources should be able to give you some options there that you have, but this is, again, agency specific. Mm-hmm. So it's not applicable to everybody in every situation. So the bank leave program, again, this is agency specific, but a lot of times what you'll see is there's a pool of annual leave that is donated to this program. And if you're also a member of that bank, if you have donated leave in the past, or if you're a part of that program and you're experiencing a medical emergency, you can take leave from that bank. Now, with both programs, there might be, with advanced leave or with the bank program, you might have to make a deposit for that leave again in the future. So again, this is a great way to get some short-term leave, and it is agency specific. So speak with an HR representative to get a better idea of what your agency can provide you.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, that's good information. I don't think a lot of people know that exists, and it might not with your agency. So like Caleb said, be sure to check with your HR office on those possible options. So we're still in short-term options. Let's talk about leave without pay, unpaid leave, LWOP, as some people say. So, yes. So how would you describe leave without pay to our audience?
So with LWOP, this is a separate classification from AWOL. So absent, without leave. The LWOP classification is, after every other leave option has been exhausted. And there's a very specific limit. So 12 months is typically what we see. That's the maximum amount of time anybody can remain on a leave without pay status before they're facing a separation or a termination from their agency. And it also could affect your eligibility for health insurance, life insurance. I've seen a lot of individuals, a lot of federal employees who have lost that by being on LWOP. So again, this is a scary place to be. It's not.
It's kind of a last resort, right?
It is definitely the last resort. But if you are racking up leave without pay hours, then you certainly would want to know how to move on from this, or how to get those hours back paid, either from workers' comp or from disability retirement.
That's great stuff. Absolutely. Thank you. So now we're going to move away from kind of those only short-term options, and we're going to start talking about kind of the in-between land, right? Short/long-term, things that can be short but also can be long-term. And this is beneficial for people, like especially people maybe who might be on a federal workers' compensation claim. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the OWCP wage loss payments. Now, this is a part of federal employees' workers' compensation benefits. And remember, you have to have an accepted claim. That's hurdle number one. If you have a on-the-job injury, or you have a condition that's caused by your work, and it's work-related, you actually have to file a claim, and you have to have an approved federal workers' compensation claim in order to receive this benefit. But essentially, OWCP wage loss is a total temporary disability payment, and essentially it's money paid to you for the time that you cannot work, right? So due to a work-related condition, it's typically 75% of your pay. That's with dependents, and 66% without dependents. And again, the reason why this is in the short/long-term section is because it can be very short-term, but it could also be very long-term too if you have a condition that's going to keep you away from work for a long period of time.
That's right. And so we have seen workers' comp wage loss payments. They've continued for long periods of time. But keep in mind, with these wage loss compensations, you have to claim those wages after you've already lost them. So you can't claim future wages. You have to first lose those wages, be on a non-pay status, and then receive compensation from the Department of Labor. So yeah, it really does depend on the situation, the longevity of that injury, how long you'll be receiving these payments.
Absolutely. And I will say too, it's important to just note that, it's kind of like riding a bull is kind of what we say in the office sometimes. When you're on wage loss, it can feel like you're riding a bull, like they're continuously trying to get you off of that benefit, whether it be through work rehab programs, or they have their own medical examiner, that's looking at you, and the severity of your condition. So it's not necessarily just this easy ride on a disability workers' compensation benefit. So
right.
So another thing to mention in the short/long-term options category is some agencies or unions might have specific disability policies for their employees, and we see that from time to time. We've seen it with the, you know, with FDIC employees. I would say is a pretty common one. But the thing that we just really want to direct your attention to here, rather than try to explain each one that might be out there, is that if your agency or union has one of these disability policies, just be aware that it might offset with other federal employee benefits that you might be eligible for too. And I think that's really the point of this slide, is just to let you know that there sometimes are specific things within your agency, but just read the fine print and make sure that you understand that there might be offsets that go along with that.
That's right. And with a lot of short-term insurance policies, it is optional. So this is not provided by the federal government. This is provided by a private insurer. So yeah, keep in mind with that.
Okay, so now moving towards long-term options, and this is really where our law firm tries to focus the most of our attention is how can we help federal employees get to a long-term solution when they can't return to work in some capacity. So we're going to dig a little deeper in a few of these topics, because this really is what we do. We help federal employees all over the country try to find the best long-term option that they might have available to them when they have a difficulty in returning to work. We're going to talk about federal disability retirement. We're going to talk about federal workers' compensation schedule award. We're also going to talk about disability, Social Security disability, and we're going to touch on VA disability as well. But the first thing that we want to unpack is disability retirement. We want to explain to you all what that means, what it is, where does it come from, how much it is, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to jump into that. Caleb, why don't you help us understand where this thing comes from?
Yeah, of course. So like Bo said, this is where a lot of our work has been focused on recently. So with federal disability retirement, this is a benefit that's built into your retirement system. So if you're a FRS employee or CSRS, you do not have to pay any extra. This is built into your standard regular contributions, your FRS basic plan, not your TSP contributions, not your thrift savings plan. So this process, being approved for disability retirement, must be applied for and proven through an adjudication process. Now, the OPM, that's the Office of Personnel Management. You'll notice there's a lot of acronyms in this webinar, but the OPM, they are the federal agency that will adjudicate every disability retirement claim. So the burden of proof is on the applicant to establish that they have a medical condition or injury which prevents them from performing their job, and that expected duration of the disability is for the next 12 months at least.
Exactly. And a good point there that Caleb made is that it's actually the OPM that makes this decision of approval or denial. A lot of people confuse this and they think that it's their specific agency, and it's not. Even though they might think it is, it's not. It's the Office of Personnel Management that's going to ultimately make that decision of approval or denial. So we work with OPM on a daily basis on the behalf of our clients. Some benefit highlights that we can walk through. It's a monthly annuity. Once you're approved for this benefit, it's a monthly annuity that you're going to receive every month all the way until you're age 62. It's a benefit to where you can also work in the private sector concurrently at the same time that you're receiving this benefit. You're going to accrue additional credible years of service while you're on disability retirement. We'll dig into that a little bit more too. And also you can keep your health and life insurance in place if you want to, which is a unique part of this benefit as well. But probably, the most common first question that we get is, well, how much money will I be provided with if I'm approved? So Caleb, can you walk us through kind of the calculation and how you figure out what that looks like for you on that annuity?
Yeah, of course. Now, for the first year, that's always going to be the highest. So your first year on disability retirement, you can expect to receive 60% of your high three. Now, that high three is the average of your 3 highest years of pay, including locality. So, when you're looking to get an estimate of this, the high 3 number is where a lot of this will rely upon. So your adjusted basic pay doesn't always include overtime. So keep that in mind when you're calculating your own high three. 60% the first year, and then 40% for years 2, 3, 4, etc., until you reach the age of 62. Now, keep in mind, these annuities are taxable income. So it depends on your age, your years of service, what those tax rates would be. Also, your income bracket as well would be affected. So we can help you make those calculations, but keep in mind this is taxable. And like Bo said, you do have the option to keep your health and life insurance. And that's going to be at the same rate to you. The OPM is going to pay the government's portions. You'll pay the same amount that you pay as an employee. And if you have a surviving spouse, if you were to pass away, then your spouse would receive a percentage of your disability payments.
That's right. So here's a visual representation of what that looks like. You have your high three average that you can calculate, and then you can assume that the first year that you're on disability retirement, 60% of that. And then, for, like Caleb said, for every year after that, all the way to the age of 62, it's going to be 40%. So how long does this thing last? Well, like we said, it's till 62. We actually in the office refer to it as a bridge. It's a way to get you from where you're at now, however old you are, all the way to the age of 62. And that's pretty significant for some people. So, we have some clients that are in their 30s, even, their 40s, their 50s, but, it's a way to get you from where you are at with your situation where you can't return to work in any sort of real way. You have a deficiency in service that you can't go back to work. So what happens between now and the age of 62? Well, we like to think of this as a bridge to get you there.
That's right, Bo. And yeah, it really is, a benefit that applies no matter what your age is. If you're in your 30s, 40s, even if you're in, early 60s, but you still want to get to that retirement age, then this is how you bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. So, like Bo said, we're establishing that you're only unable to perform your federal position. So you could be working in the private sector during that time, and a lot of our clients will. They'll go back to school, they'll start businesses, they'll be able to work and do great in the private sector and earn a good stable income while they're receiving disability retirement for 30, 20 years.
Absolutely. And here we are again with that word disability, as I said in the very beginning of this presentation. When you say the word disability, that means different things to different people. For example, when we're proving your eligibility for disability retirement, we're talking about your occupational disability. We're not necessarily proving that you're totally disabled and can't do anything. So what Caleb is saying here is very important. We have a lot of people that we help that can continue to work, just not in their job anymore. And a unique benefit that's inside this disability retirement is that you can work in the private sector and you can earn up to 80% of your previous job's current salary while you're receiving the monthly annuity.
Right, that's a huge point.
Yep. So keep that in mind. Here's a visual illustration of what that looks like. You can see, again, we have the 60 for the first year, the 60% for the first year, and 40% for every year after that. And then you can see where we're stacking the 80% potential earnings on top of that. So in some situations, for the people who can, now we realize that not all people can go off in the private sector and continue to work, but for the people who can, you can see how beneficial that might be for somebody to be able to earn some income on top of their disability retirement.
That's right. And it's very important, like Bo said, to establish that this is not total disability here with disability retirement. And a lot of people that I speak with, they you get a little bit freaked out about the word disability and what that means. And disability is not total in this context. It's purely occupational. And we'd be happy to speak about that on the phone if you were to call in for a consultation. And then, yes, like Bo said before, every year that you receive this benefit until you reach the age of 62 is going to count as a further year of credible service, as if you were still working there.
Now this is a very unique part of federal disability retirement. In fact, I've never Never even heard of anything like this in any other kind of disability benefit that I've ever looked at. But yeah, that's right. If you're on federal disability retirement, every year that you're on that benefit is going to count as another earned credible year of service, even though you're not a federal employee anymore. So you're separated. Like,
right.
you're not a federal employee. You may be working in the private sector, but you're still going to be getting these credible years of service. And why is that important? Because it accumulates, it adds to your future retirement calculations. So once you reach the age of 62, you're going to add those additional years, just like as if you'd been there, but you weren't.
That's right. And you'll receive that credit, and a higher adjusted pension for the rest of your life. So this really is a lifelong benefit. When we talk about disability retirement, you'll receive exponential years of service and an increase for the long term. So it's very, very valuable when you think about that.
So just to be clear on this, we want to also show you a visual representation of how significant this part of the benefit can be. This is an illustration of somebody who is 40 years old, and they've already got 10 years of service under their belt. They've already accumulated that. So if they go on disability retirement at age 40, for 22 years, all the way until age of 62, they're going to accumulate those additional years of service. So when they retire at age 62, they're not retiring with just 10 years of credible service. They're going to be retiring with 32 years because of the additional 22 that they earned while on disability retirement.
So one of the questions that I get very often is, what happens to my health insurance? What happens to my life insurance when I go on disability retirement? So the good news is, with your federal employee health benefits, your FEHB, that will continue. You'll continue at the same plan, same coverage that you have right now. That also applies for any spouse, family member, dependent that you have. So the OPM, they'll function in a lot of ways like your employer. They'll function like your employing agency. So you'll pay the same amount that you pay right now if you're an employee. You'll pay the employer portion, and the OPM is going to pay the government's portion.
That's right. So the good news is you can keep it, right? One thing to just keep in mind too with life insurance, the older that you get with FEGLI, Federal Employee Group Life Insurance, the older that you get, the more expensive those premiums are. So at some point in time, it's going to be worth you, if you're trying to keep and maintain a lot of life insurance as a federal employee that's in retirement, just remember that at some point in time, it might be worth looking into the private market for some competitive options there for you. So let's talk about the eligibility for disability retirement. And again, we're back on the topic of what's the difference between total and occupational disability. Caleb, can you once again kind of help us understand this?
Sure, of course. So with total disability, those conditions that we see most often would be any form of cancer where you require chemotherapy, you're unable to work in any capacity, a lot of cognitive impairments, Alzheimer's, early onset dementia, those would constitute a total disability. But what are more common than that would be a bulging or herniated disc, or torn rotator cuff, arthritis in any joint, or your hands, your feet, anything that prevents you from performing a physical aspect of your job. Now, if your job is completely sedentary, but you still have to type and use a keyboard, carpal tunnel could play a impact in that type of work. But even a mental health condition, anxiety, depression, PTSD, those are very common. So this is not saying that you're totally unable to work, period. The occupational side of disability is saying you can't perform 100% useful and efficient service in your current position.
Exactly. So when we're talking about qualifications, we're really talking about performance, conduct, and attendance. And we're trying to prove that you're not capable of being fully successful in one of those three categories: performance, conduct, or attendance. And that's really, it's just about your job. Like Caleb said, it's not about any job, but we're talking about your specific position. Okay, so let's move on to a different long-term benefit, and this is a part of your possible federal workers' compensation benefits. We're going to talk about schedule awards. And again, a schedule award is one part of a federal workers' compensation benefit. Now, this is totally different than what we were just talking about. We were just talking about federal disability retirement, which doesn't necessarily need to be work-related. In fact, if you have an injury from a soccer game that you played on Saturday that now prevents you from fully performing your job, you can be eligible under federal disability retirement. But when we talk about federal workers' compensation, obviously that's got to be a work-related condition. So essentially schedule awards from a workers' compensation benefit is a payment to the employee for a permanent loss of use to a specific body part. And it's something that you have to prove. You have to have gone through conservative treatment to the extent that you can to reach a point in treatment which we call maximum medical improvement, or MMI. And once a person has gotten to a point of maximum medical improvement, which is the point to where their condition is very, very unlikely to continue to improve, is kind of what that means in layman's terms. You go and you can get a evaluation from a doctor to give you a percentage of impairment. So we're talking about a percentage of loss of use. So a good example might be somebody's arm, right? You're trying to prove that you can't use your arm to the 100% extent that you used to use it. But there is certain exclusions here. Now we don't get to have a schedule award for your brain, your spine, or your heart specifically. Those types of injuries would have to also affect a different part of your body that would be covered under the schedule. And here's an example of the schedule. And this is what federal workers' compensation, the Department of Labor has qualified as the accepted body parts and the numbers of weeks associated with those body parts in terms of what they will allow for a schedule award. So that's somewhat of a long-term benefit in the sense that you're saying that forever I'm going to be a certain percentage of loss of use to this body part. Therefore, you're in turn going to receive some form of compensation from workers' compensation for that.
So yeah, Bo, what's important to remember also with, whenever we're talking about the OWCP and federal disability retirement from the OPM, there are certain benefits that are offset, or they do, you're not able to receive both at the same time. Now, you can receive 100% of your schedule award while receiving federal disability retirement. A schedule award and your disability retirement payments do not offset. However, you are not going to be able to receive wage loss payments from the Department of Labor, OWCP, while you receive your federal disability retirement annuities. You can be approved for both benefits at the same time, but you cannot double dip on those monthly annuities.
That's a great point. That's a good point. And see how confusing this is? Whether, you can get one thing with something else, but not with something else. That's what we're saying when we're saying that this is really complex, right? And this is why you need somebody helping you through to navigate through these things, because they're hard to understand unless you do it every day. So moving on to another long-term option that we want to talk about is Social Security disability insurance. So this is a benefit for anybody. It's not specific to federal employees. That has a total disability. Now we're talking about a total disability. We're not talking about what we were saying earlier where we said occupational disability. To be eligible for Social Security disability, you have to prove that you are totally unable to perform any job out there. Caleb, can you go into a little bit further about this?
Yeah, of course. And that's what Bo's talking about is the threshold to establish that you qualify for Social Security disability. You do have to be out of work, period. You are not able to make any sort of substantial gainful activity while you're attempting to qualify for Social Security disability. So this is where we see very serious health conditions. This does include the totality of your health, so not relating to just one or two. But if you have 5, 6, a multitude of different disabilities, a multitude of different diagnosed conditions, those could also help you qualify for your Social Security disability insurance. And to add a further confusing element to this, there is an offset between Social Security disability and federal disability retirement. You can be approved for both, and if you do, those benefits will offset. And in fact, in order to qualify for federal disability, you do have to also apply for SSDI first, just to submit that approval.
Absolutely.
Or submit the application.
Absolutely. And if you have questions about that offset, call our office. We can walk you through that, and we can help you understand that better. So I think the last one that we're going to talk about today is VA disability, Veterans Administration disability. This is a disability compensation that offers tax-free payments to veterans who got sick or injured while they were in service. And we actually, as we actually see a lot of federal employees who have some form of VA disability. There's hiring preferences with regards to, to veterans for federal employee positions. So that comes up in our office a little bit. Caleb, can you expound on that slightly?
Yeah, of course. So the federal workforce employs a very, very high number of military veterans. And so logically, our law firm also represents a lot of disabled military veterans. And you can be rated at 0% or 100% or anywhere in between. And that VA disability compensation, that is not going to be offset or diminished by your disability retirement. Like Bo said, this is a tax-free payment that you'll receive every month. So whether you're at 0% or 100%, that VA disability is very useful. It's a stable form of income that you can count on. And the VA has their own method, their own evaluations to understand your level and your percentage of disability. They have very specific math and ratings processes, entire positions at the VA that are dedicated to calculating that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very stable, long-term benefit for the people who can qualify for it. Okay, so let's go back to that benefit timeline again, because again, now that we've walked through a lot of these different options, now this might make a little bit more sense to you now, seeing it in this kind of timeline, if you will. It's really important to try to understand that there are short-term things that can help you. There are long-term things that can, benefit you for a long, long time. And then there's kind of some things that are in between. And that's kind of why we laid this out here like this, Caleb.
Right. And reviewing all these benefits again, there are some that you can receive at the same time. There are benefits that do not offset. So when you think about this timeline, one benefit could lead to another.
Exactly.
A short-term FMLA could lead to a long-term federal disability retirement. A short-term wage loss could lead to a long-term schedule award. So this timeline doesn't apply to everybody. So if there are some benefits that you do or do not qualify for, that's fine. We want to help you maximize that. We want to help you explore what your best options are.
Yeah, that's really well put. One thing that I will say too is another suggestion. Caleb and I have touched on a couple different offsets, what works with and what doesn't work with different benefit options. We have another webinar actually specifically on offsets for federal employee benefits. So I would encourage you to check that out if you're concerned or interested in learning more about how that might affect your specific situation. And really, you got to find out what option is right for you. That's the whole point of this. And we're here to help you. That's what we do every day for federal employees all over the country, is we help them figure out what benefits are right for them. And if it's possible, we help them get those benefits approved. So some of the key points, Caleb, I think is, again, that timeline. We really want you to understand that there are a lot of options out there, and I think the goal is to try to find the most secure option for you, for your specific situation. But ultimately, which one's right for you.
That's right. So hopefully with this webinar, you took away some good points about the longevity of each of these benefits. I've spoken with people who've assumed that workers' comp wage loss is going to last them for the next 10 or 15 years. But the point with all of this we hope to give you a better understanding of the time frame and what you can expect for your future. And if you speak with me on the phone, you can hear me talk about this in detail. And I'll tell you that that's really what we're concerned with here, is helping you to move into that next stage of life and have a stable future where if you're injured or if you're disabled, you're not going to fall all the way back to rock bottom. You're going to have some level of protection and stability if things go wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can call our office and talk to Caleb. Like I said in the beginning, he's a case evaluation specialist here, and he's on the phone with federal employees every day all across the country talking about this stuff. So if you're interested in learning more about that, contact us to schedule a free consultation. But that brings us to the conclusion of the webinar. Caleb, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Bo. It was great to speak about this with you today. Thanks a lot, Bo. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we learned a lot, and we went through a lot. We're here for you if you need us in any way. We welcome all your questions. So we're going to close the webinar, but stay on here if you're still trying to get your questions answered. We still have people working behind the scenes to try to answer your questions through here. But that's all for today. I'm going to throw this back over to Nick. Nick, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Bo and Caleb. Great job, guys. You can see there's a lot of options available to you out there. There's a lot of different directions you can go. I know it can be confusing. You might not understand the differences between these benefits and the nuances of how they interact and work together. So that's what we're here for. We're here to help you, educate you, walk you through those. If you have questions that you want to get out right now, go to that chat box, leave us a question there. We will answer those as quickly as possible. If we're not able to get to those, or you want to talk about the specifics of your case, give our office a call and schedule a free consultation. Those are extremely valuable to people. They're going to walk through the specifics of your case so that you can see all the options available to you and the best path for you to go down. So we'd love to talk to you about that more. And just know that we know that if you're looking at this benefit, you're in a situation that you never thought you'd be in. And you need a little bit of hope for the future. So we're here to help you see the path to that secure future. We really appreciate you being here. You can find more federal employee benefits webinars on our website. We have the full schedule up there. We have a YouTube channel that has previous webinars that we've put on. We're trying to create more content for you to help educate you and help you get on the path to your future. So thank you for being here. We're looking forward to seeing you next time. And with that, we're going to wrap up the webinar. Thank you.